I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 6 years now. We met in college, got married right after she finished her degree in environmental science, and everything seemed pretty solid at first. I mean, I was deeply in love, she seemed like she was too, and we had plans for a future that looked promising. We were building a life, me working as an engineer for a company developing sustainable habitats for Mars colonization, and Lisa diving into her environmental projects, supposedly making the world a better place. The first signs that something was off didn't hit me immediately. At first, Lisa was her usual bitchy self, throwing tantrums when I didn't load the dishwasher right or when I forgot to pick up her organic kale from the store. But I figured that was just her usual mood swings, or maybe stress with her job. She'd get snippy, call me an idiot for not understanding her big picture, and then storm off to her craft room, where she'd spend hours binge-watching some environmental documentary or arguing with her friends about climate. Change on her phone. Nothing unusual, or so I thought. It was around the third or fourth time she snapped at me for being irresponsible or not caring enough about the planet that I started noticing other things. Her phone started going missing more often, and she'd be secretive about it. She'd say she was texting her sister or some colleague about work, but her screen would go black the second I'd glance at her. And small things, her changing her schedule without telling me, being distant when I tried to talk, or suddenly canceling plans because she had work to do, these were signs I brushed off at first. I mean, she was busy, right? We all get caught up in work and life, especially when you're juggling careers and trying to save the damn planet. But then I found it. It was late one night when I got up to grab water from the kitchen. I usually don't pay much attention to her stuff, but I happened to glance at her laptop because I needed a password for something. And that's when I saw it, an open chat window with messages that made my stomach drop. They weren't just work-related. They were more flirty, suggestive messages with some guy named Mark, the kind of messages that make your skin crawl. Can't wait to see you tonight, and your atmospheric regulation system was so hot last time. I mean, what the hell does that even mean? I started reading more and it was clear as day. These two had been sneaking around behind my back, and apparently their simulation chamber encounters were more than just work talk. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The guy was her sustainable Mars habitat life support engineer, my own profession, my expertise. They'd been using the cover of atmospheric regulation systems as a code for what was really happening. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just some random affair. It was an elaborate lie, a betrayal rooted in her obsession with her research, which she always brushed off as important work. But deep down, I knew what it really was. She'd been cheating on me with her own damn colleague, and I had been blind to it for months. I needed a moment. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. My mind was racing, anger, sadness, disbelief. How could she do this? After everything we'd built, all those nights she'd been working late, all the times she'd told me she was exhausted from her job. Turns out she'd been lying to my face. I felt sick. It was like I'd been hit by a truck. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I needed to plan. I couldn't just blow up now. I had to be smart. I snapped a quick screenshot of the messages and saved them somewhere private. Then I quietly shut her laptop, put my phone aside, and went to bed, pretending everything was normal. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache. I avoided her gaze as she strutted into the kitchen, still bitchy, still Lisa. She threw some coffee in the machine, snapped at me when I asked how she slept, and then started her usual monologue about how I never listen or care enough about her feelings. Honestly, I was numb. I just kept thinking about those messages, about how she'd lied to me for so long. That moment, I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The trust was shattered. I knew I had to confront her, and I had to do it carefully. Because the shock of this betrayal was so raw, I didn't know what I'd say next. I decided to wait until she left for work before I brought it up. I didn't want to do something impulsive, especially with all those emotions swirling inside me. I made sure to hide the evidence I'd found, just in case she tried to deny or spin her way out. Honestly, I didn't trust her anymore, and I knew she'd be ready to lie or twist things to her advantage. When Lisa finally left, I sat alone in our living room, staring at the phone I'd used to take the screenshot. My hands trembled a little. The feelings were a mess: anger, heartbreak, betrayal, and that gnawing sense of confusion. How could she do this? How long had it been going on? And the worst part, what the hell was I supposed to do now? I loved her, I really did, but she had crossed a line that I didn't think I'd ever have to face. I kept replaying her words, her lies, her dismissive tone, the way she'd brush off issues when I'd try to talk about our relationship. It was like she was always pushing me away. I knew I had to confront her, but I also wanted to prepare myself. I didn't want to be blindsided with more bullshit or accusations. I decided to call her from my work phone just to sound neutral, but I knew she'd pick up. I had to hear her voice, see if I could gauge her reaction. When she answered, her voice was icy, annoyed even. "Yeah. Hey, Lisa," I started, voice flat but controlled. "Can we talk when you get home tonight?" There was a pause. "What's there to talk about, Mike? I'm busy and I don't have time for your accusations." That was her typical deflecting tactic. I pressed on, voice firmer. "I know about the messages. I saw them, the ones between you and Mark." The line went silent for a second, then she burst into a bitchy laugh. "Oh, really? You're imagining things. You're always so paranoid. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh?" I clenched my jaw, trying not to lose it. "Don't lie, Lisa. I'm not stupid. I saw them. I know what you've been doing." "How long has this been going on?" She scoffed. "You think I'd cheat on you over some stupid messages? Grow up. You're just insecure. You're jealous because I have a life outside of you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who was completely dismissive, maybe even a narcissist. She didn't care about me or what I felt. She was just angry that I found out, and she was trying to turn it around on me. I told her I'd be home that evening, and I hung up, feeling hollow. The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't focus at work. I kept thinking about all the times I'd trusted her, all the nights I'd come home hopping for a normal evening, only to be met with her bitchy attitude or some kind of emotional wall. It all came crashing down in my head. I was furious that she'd lied for so long, but I was also heartbroken. How did we get here? When did I become just some guy she could cheat on and dismiss? That evening, I waited in the living room, trying brace myself for what was going to be a brutal conversation. I knew she'd deny everything, maybe accuse me of cheating or being paranoid. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted honesty, though I doubted I'd get any. When she finally walked through the door, she was wearing that same bitchy smirk, like she already knew she'd won some battle. I didn't hold back. I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshot, and watched as her face twitched with annoyance, then quickly shifted into that defensive mask. "What is this? Some sort of jealous rant? You're crazy, Mike," she hissed, crossing her arms. "No, Lisa, it's real, and I know you've been lying. I know about Mark and those stupid simulation chamber meetings you've been sneaking to. Don't even try to deny it." My voice cracked a little, but I kept going. "How long has this been going on? Since when do you think it's okay to cheat and lie? How many nights have you spent with him while pretending to be at work?" She rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with contempt. "Oh, please, you're exaggerating as usual. That's just some stupid joke you're making. Mark and we're just colleagues. It's all just work stuff, I swear. You're crazy if you think I'd cheat." I couldn't believe her audacity. She lied so effortlessly, like she was some queen of deception, but I saw through her bullshit. I saw the way she fidgeted, the way her eyes darted. I knew she was trying to spin her way out of it, but the damage was done. I'd caught her red-handed, or at least I thought I had. And that's when the realization hit me: I was in deep. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I was faced with a woman who didn't care about us at all. I told her I needed some time to think, and I left her standing there, still trying to deny everything. I didn't sleep that night, just laying in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like my world had collapsed. The betrayal cut so deep it was almost physical. I wondered how I'd let things get so bad, how I'd been blind to her lies. And I knew, in my gut, that this was not something I could just brush off or forgive. Something fundamental had broken between us, and I didn't see how we could fix it. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I kept replaying everything in my head: Her words, her lies, the way she looked at me with that fake smile like she didn't care. I'd always thought we were solid, that we had a future built on trust. Turns out I was wrong. She'd been sneaking around with Mark for months, and I'd been completely blind to it. The betrayal was a punch to the gut that left me reeling. I didn't want to just jump into some rash decision. I needed a plan. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand answers, but I knew that would only escalate things and probably give her a chance to spin even more lies. Instead, I started gathering information. I revisited her phone, looked through her emails, checked her social media. I wanted to know exactly what she'd been hiding. It was disgusting how much she'd lied, trying to cover her tracks, making excuses, blaming me for being paranoid. But I wasn't buying it anymore. One thing that really hit me was how she dismissed my feelings, calling me insecure or jealous whenever I brought up her behavior. That bitchy attitude of hers was her armor, her way of making me doubt myself. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. I felt like such a fool for trusting her, for believing in what we had. I'd always known she was a bit bitchy, but I never thought she'd be capable of something this cold and calculated. That was the worst part, her indifference. It was like I was just some inconvenience to her, a guy she was supposed to be married to but who she'd been using as a cover while she fucked around. I started thinking about what to do next. Part of me wanted to fight for us, to see if there was any way to salvage the wreckage. But another part, the bigger, louder part, just wanted to get out. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied so effortlessly, who treated me like an idiot, who was clearly more interested in her little affair than in me or our marriage. That night, I decided to set a trap. I knew she'd come home expecting me to beg or plead, but I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I planned to confront her with everything I had, to make her face the consequences of her actions. I prepared myself emotionally, trying to steel my resolve. I wanted to see her squirm, to make her understand how deeply she'd hurt me. I knew this was going to be the defining moment. Either she'd finally admit everything, or she'd double down and make things worse. When she arrived home, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me for no reason. "What do you want, Mike?" "I told you I was busy," she said sharply. I took a deep breath, feeling my pulse race. "Lisa, I know about you and Mark. I saw the messages. I know you've been lying to me. This isn't just some work thing. You've been cheating on me. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes widened for a second, and then she rolled her eyes like I was some kind of idiot. "Oh, you're such a drama queen. You really think I'd cheat? That's pathetic. You're just insecure. You're losing your mind." I clenched my fists. "Don't lie to me. I have the proof. I saw everything. How long has this been happening? Since when?" She scoffed and looked away. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Mark and I are just colleagues. You're imagining things. You're so paranoid, Mike. Maybe you're the one cheating, hiding stuff from me, acting weird." That pushback made my blood boil. I was furious at her dismissiveness, her lies, her bullshit. I knew she was trying to turn the tables, make me look crazy, but I didn't care. I told her I was done playing her game, that I was sick of her manipulations. I told her I was leaving her, that I couldn't be with someone who lied so effortlessly, who didn't respect us enough to be honest. She laughed again, that nasty, condescending laugh. "You're serious? You're actually going to leave because I talked to some guy? Grow up, Mike. You're pathetic. You're just jealous because I have a life outside of you." That was it. Something inside me snapped. I'd had enough of her lying, her bitchy attitude, her dismissiveness. I told her she could go to hell, that I was done wasting my time on a woman who didn't care about me or our vows. I packed a bag that night, knowing I couldn't stay in that toxic environment anymore. I felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. Part of me was relieved to finally put an end to her lies, but the pain of betrayal still burned deep. As I left that night, I looked back at our apartment, feeling like I was leaving behind a life I'd loved, one that had been turned into a lie. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to get away from her. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal, pretending everything was okay when it was. I'd been stupid. I'd let her manipulate me for too long. And now I was starting to figure out who I really was, someone who deserved better than a cheating, manipulative wife. The first few days after I left were a blur. I stayed with a friend for a while, just to get some space from everything. The house still felt like a cold, empty shell, filled with memories I couldn't erase. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering face, denying everything, spinning her lies. It hurt more than I expected, like my trust had been shattered and I'd been left to pick up the pieces. I kept replaying the conversations, the signs I'd missed, the moments I'd dismissed. The worst part was feeling so stupid for not seeing it sooner. I'd been a fool, so wrapped up in our routines, our future plans, that I ignored the subtle clues. Her secretive behavior, her dismissiveness, the way she'd suddenly pull away. I'd always thought she was just busy or stressed, but it was something darker. She'd been hiding something and she'd lied straight to my face. One thing that gnawed at me was how she'd always claimed she was committed to our relationship, that her work was her passion, and that Mark was just some colleague. That was her favorite line, like her being busy with work was an excuse for everything. But I knew better now. It wasn't work. It was her affair, her secret life, her betrayal. And she'd painted me as the paranoid one. Yeah, right. I decided I had to take control of the situation. I wanted to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. I started digging into her messages, her emails, her social accounts. I needed proof, proof that this wasn't some misunderstanding or a one-time thing. The more I looked, the more I saw how cold and calculated her lies had been. She'd been planning this for months, sneaking off to meetings that weren't about atmospheric regulation at all. Every time she said she was working late, I now knew she was probably with Mark in some tiny, secret chamber they shared, pretending it was just some simulation. That realization made me sick. I felt like I'd been played for a fool. How could I have been so blind? We built a life based on trust and she'd just thrown it all away. I kept asking myself, was this about her needing some secret escape or was it just her nature? I didn't want to believe she was that selfish, that manipulative. But her lies weren't just about some affair. They were about control, about dismissing my feelings, about turning everything into a joke. The hardest part was the emotional roller coaster. One moment I was furious, ready to blow up her phone or show up at her work. Then I'd sink into sadness, realizing this was the end of what I thought we had. I'd loved her, or at least I thought. I did. Now that love felt like a fragile illusion. I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust again, or if I should just accept that she was gone from my life for good. In the quiet moments, I'd sit and stare at my phone, debating whether to call her, text her, or just leave everything behind. Honestly, part of me wanted to just disappear, forget she ever existed. But I knew I had to face the reality. She'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I needed to decide what my next move was. I was tired of feeling hurt, tired of feeling like I'd been played, but I also felt this strange need to finally take control. To stand up and say, "This is enough." While I was trying to process all of this, she texted me out of the blue one afternoon. I didn't expect to hear from her, especially not with her typical bitchy attitude. But there it was, a message that read, "We need to talk. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please come home." That message made my stomach turn. I was furious. How dare she act like she was the victim? Like she hadn't been the one sneaking around. I wanted to reply, tell her exactly what I thought, but I hesitated. Instead, I just left it unread. I knew she was trying to manipulate me again, to make me feel guilty, to get me back in her grip. Deep down, I knew I couldn't go back, not after everything. I had to stand my ground and figure out what I really wanted. Was I going to forgive her? Was there any way to salvage this mess? Or was I just fooling myself? The questions kept swirling in my head, and I realized I was at a crossroads. I had to decide whether I was going to fight for us or finally let her go. Either way, I knew my life wouldn't be the same. The betrayal had opened my eyes, and I could never unsee what I now knew. I was hurt, angry, but strangely, part of me felt a small flicker of clarity, like I finally understood what I deserved, and it wasn't this kind of betrayal. The aftermath of everything hit me harder than I thought it would. For days, I just stayed holed up, not answering her texts or calls. I felt like a numb shell, angry, betrayed, and utterly exhausted. My mind kept circling back to the same questions. How could someone I trusted so blindly do this? Was I blind all along? And most painfully, what's next? I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, but the idea of confronting her again, trying to get some answers, seemed almost unbearable. One night, I finally decided I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I needed closure. I needed to understand why she had done this, or at least get her to admit the truth. So I set up a meeting with her. I told her to come over, no games, no bullshit. I wanted her to face me, to look me in the eyes and tell me why she'd done this. If she was going to lie her way out of it again, I was prepared for that. But I wasn't letting her keep her secrets anymore. When she showed up at my place, she was dressed bitchy as usual, like she was already annoyed I called her over. She strutted in, eyes flashing with that "I'm better than you" attitude. I got straight to the point. "Lisa, I want the truth. Why did you do this? Why did you lie to me for so long?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "Oh, now you're acting all innocent. I told you I was busy with work. You're so paranoid, Mike." Her voice was dripping with contempt. "You really think I'd cheat on you? That's just your insecurities talking." I shook my head, feeling my blood boil. "Don't lie to me. I know everything. I saw the messages. I know you've been sneaking around with Mark. How long has this been going on?" She scoffed and looked away, acting like I was the crazy one. "You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Mark and I are just colleagues. It's just some stupid work thing, and you're overreacting because you're insecure." That was the last straw. I was so sick of her bullshit, her dismissiveness, her fake excuse-making. I told her I wasn't going to listen to her lies anymore, that I'd caught her and I knew the truth. I told her I was done, that I was leaving for good, that I couldn't be married to someone who lied and cheated and disrespected me like she had. She looked furious, then started yelling about how I was crazy, jealous, and that I was just making everything up. She accused me of spying on her, of being paranoid. Her bitchy attitude only intensified, and I saw her for what she was, someone manipulative, selfish, and indifferent to what I felt. She kept trying to turn it around, to blame me, to make me seem like the villain. But I wasn't having it anymore. I told her I was done playing her game. I told her she could go to hell, and I left. That night I packed my things and moved out of the apartment we shared. I didn't care about her anymore, not her lies, her excuses, her bitchy attitude. I was done. For the first time in my life, I was finally putting myself first. I was tired of being the only one fighting for us, only to be betrayed and dismissed. I needed to start over, to rebuild myself. The aftermath was tough. I felt lonely, broken, angry, everything all at once. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. For too long, I'd let her walk all over me, thinking I was doing the right thing by staying silent, by pretending everything was fine. But now I understood something vital. I deserved honesty, respect, and loyalty. I deserved better than someone who lied and cheated behind my back. I realized I'd been putting her needs before mine, trying to hold everything together, but that couldn't last. The hardest part was accepting that our relationship was over, completely and utterly. No amount of apologies or explanations could undo what she'd done. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. The trust was gone, and it wasn't coming back. All I could do now was focus on healing, on moving forward, and on making sure I never let someone treat me like that again. I learned the hard way that sometimes you have to walk away from what you thought was forever, because the betrayal cuts too deep to mend. And honestly, I don't regret it. I just wish I'd seen the signs sooner. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I moved into a new place, somewhere I could breathe without feeling the weight of her lies everywhere. I stopped communicating with her entirely, no texts, no calls, no endless trying to get some last word. Honestly, I didn't miss the toxicity or the manipulation. What I did miss was the life I thought I had with her, but I knew deep down that staying would have only meant more pain and betrayal. Sometimes, the hardest thing is letting go of what you thought you had, especially when that's shattered beyond repair. I started focusing on myself, working more, hanging out with friends, rediscovering what made me happy. I realized I'd been so caught up in trying to save a relationship that was already broken, I'd neglected myself entirely. The betrayal burned like a fresh wound, but over time that pain started to fade. I came to terms with the fact that her lies weren't just about some affair. They exposed her true character, and I refused to be a part of that anymore. Looking back, I learned some tough lessons. Never ignore the small signs because they're often the early warnings of something bigger. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's hard to rebuild. More than anything, I learned that I deserve honesty and respect, no matter how bitchy or difficult someone may be. They should never treat you like you're disposable. I also learned that sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make. It's about valuing yourself enough to know your worth. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'll say this: don't second guess yourself. If your gut is telling you something's wrong, listen. Don't let anyone manipulate or dismiss your feelings. You are worthy of loyalty and truth. Never settle for less. And if someone betrays you, don't be afraid to walk away. It hurts, yeah, but healing is possible. You'll come out stronger, and eventually you'll realize you're better off without the lies and the bullshit. That's what I've learned from all of this. I'm still healing, still piecing myself back together, but I know now that I'm capable of better. Life goes on, and with time, the pain fades into a lesson. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm done with the betrayal, and I'm finally ready to move forward. Not just to find happiness again, but to rebuild my sense of self and trust in what's real.